Today is the last day of the 35th Kagyu Munlam Chenmo. And so, just as I have requested of him, this year His Eminence Goshri Gyaltsen Rinpoche has gone to unfathomable efforts to come and preside over the Kagyu Munlam. Our original plan was that Rinpoche only needed to attend a few of the most important events and did not need to come to everything. But Rinpoche has, whenever he's been able, come to preside over the sessions whenever he could without missing a single day. This is extremely kind of him. So, on the behalf of all the monastics and lay people who have attended the Munlam, I would like to express my deepest thanks to Rinpoche. Likewise, Kyabje Mengyu Rinpoche showed us the kindness of giving meditation instructions during the pre-Munlam teachings. And then, since then, during the time of the Kagyu Munlam, Rinpoche has also put in a lot of effort to come to many of the different events, both large and small. So I'd like to ask once again and thank Rinpoche on behalf of everyone. This year, even though I was not there, everyone in the Munlam organizing committee has taken upon their responsibilities for their individual teams and cooperated, working together just the same as they would if I were there. So the results that the work has produced are no different from how they would have been were I there. So I'd like to take this opportunity to give my heartfelt thanks to Lama Chodak, foremost among the Munlam workers, and all the other workers as well. Thank you very much. Likewise, the monks and nuns from the various monasteries, despite the fact that the weather has been very hot, they have been very exemplary and praiseworthy in all respects during this Munlam, in terms of their motivation, conduct, and everything else, even in the heat. So I would like to also say thank you very much to all of you as well. Likewise, the faithful people who have come from foreign countries. This year, there have been many changes in the Munlam dates. This has caused you difficulties financially. Once you have arrived here, the weather has been hot, and that gives you even more difficulties. But all of you participating makes the Kagyu Munlam into an international event. I think it shows that no matter where we are in the world, where in the world we are from, our wishes are in unison. Our wishes for world peace are in unison. Our wishes that all sentients be happy are in unison. And so I'd like to thank you all deeply. Likewise, the place where we hold the Munlam is the sacred site of Bodh Gaya in the noble land of India. The government of India, the federal government, as well as the state government of Bihar and the local administration have all provided a great deal of assistance. Likewise, the administration of the Mahabodhi Temple have also continuously supported us, not only in the past, but also in the present. So I'd like to take this opportunity to express my appreciation and thanks to all of them. Today, at first I didn't think I needed to say too much. But now, I thought I'd like to take this opportunity to say a few things, and I think that maybe it'll bring a little bit of benefit. So the main thing to talk about is that many people have been asking when the next Kagyu Munlam, the 36th, will be held. And they're also asking that the time be fixed and not changed. Quite a few people have said this, and generally from our point, we have gone to a lot of effort to have a definite schedule that didn't change. But sometimes there are events with other lamas, other great lamas, and Monlams from other lineages that are being held at the same time, and when they conflict with each other, then it's not very easy for us or for them. And for that reason, we have had to postpone or change our dates for such reasons several times. Even though we haven't wanted to reschedule, there have been situations where we have no choice but to do so. But we're doing everything we can to avoid having to change our dates in the future. In the next few days, we will have meetings to decide a fixed time for the Monlam. We will have free discussion about the schedule in the meetings and do our best to make a decision as soon as we can. And once we have decided, we will announce it immediately over the internet so that everyone can make advanced preparations to come to the next Monlam. So we'll try our hardest to inform you. We will try our hardest to inform you as soon as we can. This year, I did not really have the opportunity to attend the Monlam in person. However, as I've already said, the Monlam has been excellent and well organized, no different than if I were there. The way I think about it, I was recognized as the Karmapa at the age of 7, and then at the age of 14, I was separated from Tibet and came to the noble land of India. Thinking about how it was when I went from being like a little boy who didn't really understand what a Karmapa is, to being brought and put on the Karmapa's throne, and gradually having to take the responsibilities that entails from my perspective. The Karmapa has a history of over 900 years, and there have been 16 incarnations. To have qualities of abandon realization such as they did, and activities such as theirs, I don't even have the confidence that I can hope for such. And I don't, for myself, really believe that it will ever happen. But because I've received the blessings of the Karmapa to some degree, I've done my best, but I'm an ordinary person. So no matter how much hard I try, there are many situations where that is not enough, where it is beyond me. Many people think to themselves that being the Karmapa, is like some incredible thing. But for me, that hasn't happened. Even if I am the Karmapa, the situation is I still really need to try hard. Gyalwa Kunsapa said, even the rebirth or reincarnation of a Lama or a Tulku should spend 12 years of purification practicing meditation to purify the remaining obstacles. It is necessary to practice meditation and accomplishment and retreat. So if one is in Tulku or reincarnation of a great Lama, you have to put in such efforts. For me, I don't have any reasons or any basis to say that I'm the reincarnation of any great Lama. And since I'm an ordinary person, I have to put in incredible effort, even more than other people. But no matter how much effort I make, it's never enough. It's never okay. It never really reaches a level where it's sufficient. And for one side, this is because people have such high, limitless hopes in me. On my own part, I do my absolute best to try to lift up to them. And I do this with as much as I can, with a pure motivation. When I was little, a lot of people came to give me advice. They'd say, "You have to be really careful. There are many people who are said to be the Karmapa, so you have to be your best." So many people said this, but for my own part, I never had the motivation that I should compete with everyone else who is said to be the Karmapa, and therefore be careful. From my own point, I've had a pure motivation. Whatever I am, making my best efforts no matter what. Even when I was studying in Tibet, in terms of my education, my tutors, my teachers, and my tutors, the way they paid respect and so forth, were not the greatest. And once I arrived in India, one reason I came to India was to study and to receive the Dharma lineages. That's why I came. So once I arrived, it should have been better than it had been in Tibet, but in terms of my education, there were many gaps. From one perspective, the fault was my own for being too lazy. And also, I'm pretty smart, and since I am pretty smart, no matter what I study, I immediately get a little bored and think, I get it. Then I immediately feel disinterested. In addition to that, the lamas and khenpos whom I've studied with, we invited the best lamas and khenpos among our kajus. But the best lamas and khenpos have their own monasteries, their own dharma centers that they have to maintain and take care of. They have activity. And so they could not spend all of their time with me. So for these reasons, sometimes I would have classes, sometimes I would not, and this happened frequently. In the past, I had the thought if I went to a Gelugpa monastery, matriculated, so to speak, and followed their curriculum, I would have become a good scholar. But later, when I thought about it, if I'd gone to a Gelugpa monastery and gone through the studies, on the one side there would have been nothing wrong with it. But on the other, since I have the title Karmapa, if the Karmapa were to go to a Gelugpa monastery to study, if people were to say that, then in the future, if someone with the head of title of the overall head of the Kaju were to do this, there'd be a bit of a problem that would happen historically. So I've had many different discussions with Gelugpa Geshes, but I've never matriculated in a Gelugpa monastery. So this is one issue. My own studies have not all been all that high quality or good. Mainly what I know has come from me taking interest and putting the effort into it. I've never had any properly organized, thorough education. So that's one issue. So another issue is that when I was recognized as Karmapa when I was 7, so I was just a little boy. From the time I was little, I grew up in Tsudpu Monastery. And when I was little, all the people around me were adults. So I had to do whatever they told me to. And I couldn't say what I needed to do. At first, of course, I didn't know what I needed to do. And in addition to that, other than listen to them, I never had any freedom to say what I should do or should not do. Actually, when I was little, I did have a lot of hard times. But for example, in like terms of power, it was the Changzi who had all the power. And when people would come to give me gifts, they first of all had to take the Changzi. They'd take them out, the Changzi would take them out and open all the gifts first. And those people were suspicious that there might be a bomb or poison or something like that. So they'd take them out and check to see whether they'd take the gifts out to make sure there was no bomb or poison. And once the gifts had been taken away, they were never brought back, almost all of them. Also, people would come and give money and say it was for me to give my parents. Those who knew my situation would give the money surreptitiously. At that time, there were always a lot of people around, right? And so without knowing, they would quickly slip it under my cushion. And slip it under my cushion secretly. And that's what it was like. So that's what it was like. And when I was little, I never really felt that I had any freedom of my own. And then I came to India. So when I came to India, India is a free country, a democracy. So I'd hoped that once I arrived, I could do whatever I wanted. That was my hope. But when I first got to India, none of us had any knowledge about India. And at that time, the people who advised me, the people, my guides, or the people who advised me, even though they definitely had pure motivation, there was none who was able to guide me, who was 100% reliable. They didn't know how things were done, so I had no one to guide me. And so when we first began discussions with the Indian government, there was disharmony, disagreement in the discussion, and this probably caused some suspicions. In any case, I've spent 18 years in India, and during this time I have had continually difficulties and hassles, as you all know. They said I was sent by the Chinese, or that I was a Chinese spy. Many things have happened. But even though many things have happened, I've done what I could. And the reason I stayed up until now is because I feel like I must not give up on the teachings, the Kagyu teachings. Likewise, I've thought to myself that this is for the benefit of Tibet, and for the benefit of all sentient beings, and thinking in this way I have stayed. Also, from another perspective, when I arrived in India, it was very fortunate. I had the fortune to meet His Holiness the Dalai Lama and hear his teachings. I had many opportunities to receive profound Dharma teachings from Chamgon Tai Sudra Rinpoche and Goshe Gyatso Rinpoche. Likewise, I have had the opportunity to receive profound Dharma teachings from Tenga Rinpoche, Boko Rinpoche, and Yongzhen Tangro Rinpoche. And I feel that all of this has been very, very fortunate. But either where I live is at Yuta Monastery, and the Heartsons, they live elsewhere. Sutra Rinpoche lives in Sherabdeng, Gyatso Rinpoche lives in Sikkim. There's never been a place for all to spend an extended period of time at the same place. It's like we've all been scattered. When I read the lives of the previous Karmapas, the Karmapas and their heartstones all stayed together. Whenever they went, they were together, whether it was by teaching Dharma or whether by taking care of each other. So there was like at that time they all took care of each other, but this has never happened with me. And for me, this is something I feel very disappointed about. Then to speak bluntly, After the 16th Karma passed away, we had a great rift in our Khamsan lineage. I don't need to say anything anymore about the old situations. But because of this, we have had some disagreements among the Ladrangs. Many things have happened since I arrived in India. Some of you know, some don't. There have been a lot of disharmony among the Ladrangs, and this has also caused me a lot of worries. On one occasion, I invited Chamgantai Sita Rinpoche and Goshu Gyaltsen Rinpoche to come to Delhi. Both Rinpoches are like the moons in a cloudless sky, and they're not stained by any faults, but those who are underneath them, their attendants, I told them to tell their attendants and the people under them that we have had a great disaster in the Khamsan lineage, such as never happened before. We've had a huge conflict. We've had a terrible violation of samsara. Please do what we can to avoid that again. This is what I asked both Rinpoches, and they promised to do as I asked. Actually, to make such a request is like teaching Avalokiteshvara the Mani mantra. You shouldn't have to say to my expense, but I was too petty and too small-minded and asked. Also, thinking that maybe it would be of benefit to the Karma Kagyu teachings, I went to see Kunzit Shama Rinpoche. And when we were arranging the meaning, on our side, shall we say, there are people who had said it would not be okay to make that connection. Quite a few people said this. Some who were nearby said this vociferously. But I thought but I ignored that, and I went to meet Shama Rinpoche. And when we met, there was no really specific result that you could point to. But now Rinpoche has passed away, and I do feel that I have a bit of comfort in my mind that at least I was able to meet Rinpoche and tell him what I thought. So that gives me a little bit of comfort. In general, we all know how important the Shama Rinpoche has been in the history of the Karma Kagyu. But in the last few years, the last couple decades, so many events have occurred that many people say we should not recite long life prayers for Shama Rinpoche, and that we should remove the Shama Rinpoches from our lineage supplications. But I think that is really not seeing the important points. Because Shama Rinpoche is not just the recent 14th Shama Mipam Chukyi Lodra. The Shama Rinpoches are part of the ultimate lineage of our Karma Kansan, a lineage from Tongden Drabha Sengye to the present. It is not the name of a single person, it's not a single person. This, no matter how much people say that the actions of the current Shama Rinpoche were wrong, I think that we must not paint the activities of the entire Shama lineage black. For this reason, I think that we must have a positive way of thinking about Shama Rinpoche. I think we need to think about Buddhism in general and the lineage in the future. Now, Shama Rinpoche has passed away, and it is extremely important that there be no problems regarding his reincarnation. If we have another situation where we say there are two different reincarnations, it'll harm the Khamsan teachers in general, and in the future the Khamsan will split into two factions, looking at each other as enemies. And that would not be good in any way at all. In the depths of my heart, I think we can have reconciliation. And I'm doing a few things to bring that about. But it is not something that for one person to do. It's crucial that we remember that both sides need to be open. if we continue to always say bad things about each other and criticize each other, if we continue to do that, I do not think it will turn out well. Our teachings, the Kamsang, are the same. Our Guru is the same. The color of our hats is the same. But if despite this we continue to cling to our own factions, no matter how right we are, we will have such bias toward our own side that we will work for ourselves, to win for ourselves and defeat the others. And so taking this on would be like a complete mistake. There'd be nothing good about it. So we often say that there's the Shamar side and that there's a Situ side that's on one side or the other. Actually, we aren't on the Situ Rinpoche side. We aren't on the Shamar Rinpoche side. We are all on the Karma Kaji side. Otherwise, if we're filled with our own afflictions, the three poisons, we engage in partisanship and jealousy, and at the same time say, and while we still do that, we say, and if at that point we say, I'm in Vajradhara's side, there's no benefit to that at all. So these people will say, I'm pure and he's pure. He's a pure Kajupa. But they're not pure. But whether one is pure or not comes down to the practice we have in our mind streams. It does not come down to whose side we are on. I think this is something we all need to keep in mind. Another thing is that I'm in America. I've spent many months abroad, the last 6 months in America. There are probably a lot of people who explain the reasons why I've stayed abroad for such a long time. But independent of anyone else's explanations, what I'd like to say is that the main reason I am staying abroad is that when I had a medical exam in Germany, they told me that I had a medical problem. So then I had an elderly attendant, and for his sake I had to go to America. Well, once I arrived there, I had to follow up on the medical problem they had told me of in Germany. And so that is the reason. Another matter is that, for many years, I've never had the opportunity to really rest. To rest both the body and the mind. Once I get back to India, there will be a lot of busyness and freneticness. So I would not be able to rest. So I have stayed here to rest. So I've stayed here because I'm thinking of the long term. Probably many people have said that I'm staying for my own personal benefit, or that I have some insidious plan, but that is not it at all. In brief, people think that I'm decisive and that whatever I'm doing, they say, he's the Karmapa. So of course it's so. They take it as definitely the case. But for me, it's not like that. No matter what decision I make or what action I do, there's a lot I have to give up. For my own part, I've done everything I could up till now to have everything I have done with a pure motivation. I've had a pure motivation, but people will make things up. There are many people who make things up out of dislike, and there's nothing to do about that. But amongst ourselves, there are many people who give incorrect explanations because they either do not know or do not understand what my real intentions are. Especially now that I'm staying in America, even the people I am around here have had a lot of anxiety. Likewise, many people all over have had a lot of anxiety. And I have actually also been quite downcast and depressed. This is because when other people look at what I've tried to do, they take it as a matter of course. But for my own part, I've had to give up a lot. None of it has been easy. And even though it has been easy, and when I ignore that and keep pushing ahead, if those around me do not believe in me, then there's no reason for me to pretend and keep going. So for that reason, I've been depressed. But when you think about it from the perspective of the future, from the time of the first Karmapa Dusum Khenpa to the present, the Gyalwang Karmapa has been a Lama who is engaged only in Dharma activities, not one who has been involved in politics. And now we are at a critical time for the snowland of Tibet. And we have come to a point where it is important to put efforts into both Dharma and politics. So for this reason, we definitely need a political leader or political guide. But for me, I don't know how to give any political direction. I don't know how to do this. And since I have the title of Karmapa, it would not be appropriate. Likewise, in terms of the Dharma, the way I think to myself is that one does politics to accomplish short-term aims and benefit. The political people, they're always changing. And also, politics means dividing into factions and then dividing into groups and then trying to find profit and benefit. But Dharma means not divide into factions and instead bringing benefit to all sentient beings, who are as limitless as space. Its duration is that people don't, change posts immediately. Dharma is for protecting ourselves in this and in future lifetimes, and for guiding ourselves in this and the hereafter. So the way the Dharma and politics work is completely different. Since I have the responsibility of being a religious leader, I can only continue in the direction of the Dharma. When I was in Tibet, I was worried that I would have to get involved in politics. Once I arrived in India, I've always thought that if it came to me having to do political activities, I would not have the skills to do it. I wouldn't know how to do it, and I have no wish to do so. This is another important point for people to take into consideration. In brief, from my own perspective, I don't have such qualities of abandonment and realization as the previous Karmapas had. If I, even though I lack those, were to continue to pretend to deceive people, I feel it would be accumulating severely negative karma. I have no feeling of delight, no thought I'll get rich, have power, that many people like me. I don't have feel like there's nothing that I can have such pride in or confidence in. So sometimes I think there's no point. There's no point to continue deceiving others. Sometimes I think it would be better to just live as an ordinary person, an ordinary Dharma practitioner. I sometimes think that, and especially recently I've felt this strongly. This is because I've worked hard for many years, but I can't work hard all by myself. A single pillar can't hold up a single building, can it? Everyone needs to work hard and help out. We say that everyone has to have people that take care of and people who take care of them. If you're taking someone, you need other people to take care of you. Without any support for yourself, there's no benefit to teachings and helping beings all by yourself. We Buddhists believe in karmic cause and effect. We believe in the view of interdependence. Interdependence means that all situations, no matter what they may be, occur because of multiple causes and conditions. There's nothing that can be accomplished with a single cause or single condition. This is something that everyone needs to take into consideration. In brief, our Kagyu lineage in general, and in particular the Karma Kamsang, it's like we're a big family. It's like a big family, and in this family, the Gyalwang Karmapa is like the father of the family. But the father can't take all the responsibility alone. The support of all the family members is needed. Likewise, if you think about the history of the Kagyu lineage, and in particular the Kamakasava, there have been many losses. For example, when the Mongol Gushen invaded, their armies razed many Karma Kansang monasteries, and many lineages of practice and explanation were lost. Such terrible events have occurred, and later, after 1959, there was the Cultural Revolution. So now we have an opportunity for the teachers to revive and flourish, and so I'd like to ask everyone, to take this opportunity as your own, and to make efforts. Sometimes people don't seem to understand how I think. They seem to be unable to understand my perspective. It's quite possible this will happen, but the way I think the most important thing is that I'm not saying that I can see far into the future or that I know how to think about the long term. But as much as I can, I try as much as I can to take a long-term view as I work. It is possible that some people cannot take such a long view, but a leader, so-called, if you're going to be a leader, it's that once you believe in your leader, even though you may not understand all their plans or the decisions, it is important to believe in them and support them. But I'm not saying you must support me. I'm not asking for you to understand me. I'm not asking you to understand me. Instead, I'm saying that this is a general thing. No matter who the leader may be in the future, people need to keep this in mind. So I leave it here today. I've spoken about several different issues, and if I've made any mistakes, or if I've said anything inappropriate, I beg your pardon. So now, whatever merit has been gathered during this Kagyu Munlam Chenmo, please dedicate for His Eminence Gosho Gyaltsab Rinpoche to live long, and for his wishes to be accomplished spontaneously, to be able to soon set foot in Tibet and turn the vast and profound wheel of Dharma. Likewise, for the masters of all lineages to live long, for the Sangha of the 10 directions to be harmonious and to have pure discipline, and so forth, as described in the great aspiration which is next. So please everyone make such aspirations and dedications.